Go to overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk/online therapy to get 20% off your first month of cognitive behavioural therapy, with weekly sessions online with a therapist, in addition to worksheets, a journal, meditation and yoga videos, and unlimited messaging. There's strong evidence that CBT can help people who hoard, and accessing therapy online can be affordable and accessible. Find out more and get your discount at overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk/online therapy.
Normally, being a little extra might be a bit much, but not when it comes to healthcare. That's why United Healthcare's Health Protector Guard fixed indemnity insurance plans, underwritten by Golden Rule Insurance Company, supplement your primary plan so you manage out-of-pocket costs. Learn more at uh1.com.
Hiring for your small business? If you're not looking for professionals on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. That's like looking for your car keys in a fish tank. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. So start looking in the right place. With LinkedIn, you can hire professionals like a professional. Post your free job on linkedin.com/spoken today.
Think of all the sleep hacks you've ever heard. You could spend years trying them all, or you could instantly transform your sleep with Boll & Branch. They make the softest, most breathable bedding you'll ever feel. And it's all 20% off. That's their best sale of the entire season. Millions of sleepers love their buttery soft sheets, airy blankets, cloud-like duvets, and so much more. And you can try all of them for 20% off with promo code BUTTERY20. So hurry to bollandbranch.com today. That's BOLL and branch.com. See site for details.
Welcome to the Overcome Compulsive Hoarding with That Hoarder podcast. I am drowning in stuff and trying to find a way out. Listen as I explore the issues and delve deep as somebody profoundly affected by hoarding disorder. Find out more, including links to subscribe to the podcast, at overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk, and find the links there to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and all over the place. So, I'm going to start today by mentioning that I am going to do a Q&A episode. Various people have asked me if I would, and I've had some questions sent through already. But to make it worth doing a full episode, I need some cues for me to A. So if you have anything you would like to ask me about my experiences, about what I know, about what you think, send them over. You can email info@overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk or find me on social media, all linked to from my website. So my guest today is someone you're now familiar with. This is Dr Jan Eppingstall, a counsellor in Australia who specialises in working with people with hoarding disorder using acceptance and commitment therapy. She even has a PhD in hoarding, so is a mine of useful and actionable information. So before we start, I saw some research the other day that will please Jan, who is a big fan of being curious when tackling your hoard. Because a study has shown that podcast listeners are more likely to be curious and less neurotic than people who don't listen to podcasts. Now, I can't comment on the neurotic side of it as a reasonably neurotic person, but having curious listeners can only be a good thing. So, hello, Jan.
Hello. Hello. I love that. I'm very happy with that. Curiosity is king. Excellent.
Absolutely. So, today we're going to talk about a topic that is applicable to many areas of life, but that can get in the way of overcoming hoarding in particular, and that is procrastination. So, Jan, let's start with what procrastination is, because it strikes me that it's more than just avoiding something. It's about actively doing one thing in order to avoid doing a different thing.
Well, we all put off doing stuff we could do today until tomorrow, and we wait till the deadline looms or passes us by, and then we're kind of running on adrenaline and we rush to the finish. And a lot of people think that it's a modern internet era thing, this kind of procrastination, but ancient civilizations struggled with it too because it's just human nature. We want to do the fun stuff and avoid the drudgery of the banal. That is the core of it. But over the past kind of 20 years, there's been a lot of research around procrastination. And whilst most of us procrastinate, not all of us are procrastinators.
Okay.
Yeah, so chronic procrastinators pathologically avoid difficult tasks and may deliberately look for distractions. True procrastination is a complicated kind of breakdown of self-regulation. We have a goal that we'd like to attain, but we can't get out of our own way to do the necessary work. So it's that gap between intention and action. Experts kind of define it as the voluntary delay of some important task we intend to do, despite knowing that we'll suffer as a result.
Because we do know, don't we? We know that we're causing ourselves stress.
We know it's not like it's really not like we are oblivious. We know that we're doing the wrong thing, and that's what's so frustrating for people. That's the most difficult part about it, because we are conscious of our inability to get that gap between intention and action to close.
So Jan, fix the world.
Okay. All right.
Why do people procrastinate? I know that's a huge, huge question.
Oh, the why is not. Yeah, the why is not so hard. I guess it's the actual stopping it. But First, we need to establish one thing: humans don't do things without reason. There's always a payoff. So researchers kind of define this quite nicely by saying procrastinators often cope with the anxiety and threat from the potential accomplishment of a task by actively avoiding the start of a task until there is insufficient time to perform optimally, which I like a lot, because it's basically saying we're silly and we leave it right to the last minute and then there's no way we can do anything about it. It's like, oh, that's fancy words for, we chose not to try rather than we tried and failed, It's just a nice fancy way to say that. But we procrastinate to avoid the start or completion of a task, I guess, because the outcome involved kind of threatens our self-esteem.
Yeah.
And we call that avoidance procrastination. But there's also another type, which is the postponement of necessary decisions that then push that decision further away from outcomes that may threaten the individual's self-esteem. So that's your indecision procrastination. It's also often a result of kind of our perceived lack of self-efficacy. So we don't think we know how to do the task, so we just keep putting it off. Better to say we didn't try, than try and fail. And that's one of the big ones. We don't really think, deep in ourselves, we think, I can't actually do that. Yeah. So if I keep pushing it out, something will happen, and I won't have to do it.
I do that with stuff in the home. I do it at work as well. If there's a piece of work that I don't feel I'm capable of, then I delay and delay and delay. It's awful. And I'm the same with, I don't know how to tackle that room, so I will make some soup.
Yeah, exactly. And we kind of don't know where to start often. Yeah. We're stressed from other parts in our lives, so that stress kind of folds over into whatever that action is that you need to take. Or the task kind of seems unclear, like, oh, what am I actually doing and how can I, and it feels too big and too complex. Like, wow, this is a massive thing that's just a blob. How can I break it down? And I think those are the reasons mainly why we do it.
I also had a work situation recently where I had to do some work on a document that someone sent me, and I left it late, and then I became convinced that the document would be corrupted somehow, and I would have to ask the person who sent it to send me another version, and that would be admitting that I hadn't started it yet. And so that made me even more scared to try and open the document, which was fine in the end, because I would have to admit that I'd left it so late. And of course, everything was fine. It was fine.
Everything was fine, yeah. And that's another thing. It's like, something, kind of you build up.
Yeah.
You build up this kind of thought process in your head that something bad's going to happen because you delayed doing it. And it can become so big that you try and lie and get your way out of it, which just makes it even worse.
So this might initially sound a bit of a strange question, but does procrastination kind of serve a purpose for our minds? I was thinking about the way that eating disorders, for instance, obviously are damaging, but they serve in the people who have them, there's a misguided sense that actually it's a means of control, or if somebody self-injures, that can help them to manage their feelings. So it's kind of about a negative thing, but our minds think there's some benefit from it.
Exactly. So it's like a maladaptive way of managing our emotions.
Yeah.
So if we can deal with our emotions, we can stay on task. But if we feel bored or sad or angry or frustrated, we look elsewhere, right? So chronic procrastinators prefer short-term, pleasurable activities at the expense of future goals.
Yeah.
That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
That quick hit, that quick feeling, good feeling, because it might be too frustrating or difficult to do that bigger job, is what stops chronic procrastinators. It's that short-term pleasure from those activities. I mean, some people think procrastination and guilt are the best motivators, though. And often chronic procrastinators see each act of procrastination as a one-off act, like they won't repeat that, but then they do it again and again and again. You often, I don't know if you do that yourself, you kind of think to yourself, just this once I won't, ...
Yeah.
And then, we're there again, doing it the second time,
I certainly know if it's something that has a deadline that you're now rushing to meet, there's also that I am never doing this again. I am never leaving it late again. I am never putting this off again. I'm going to be able because I'm really strict about meeting my deadlines, and I do. But I put myself through so much extra stress by needing to be close to the deadline.
Exactly. And that's that idea, it's a good motivator, but the stress is not worth it because it's not really great for us. I mean, procrastinators have higher levels of stress and lower well-being. And, we've kind of all got a friend or someone we know that delayed going to the doctor because, they just will, it'll be fine, I won't bother to get that checkup. And then it's too late for treatment. It's can be extremely, damaging to your health.
Yeah. Now, I know a lot of people recommend having things external to yourself to prompt you, like a deadline or a list to break out of procrastination. And I can certainly find those things help. Why might those things work?
Okay. This is really important for everyone, and I bang on about it all the time with my kids and my clients. If you don't write the task down in a list, those tasks lurk at the edge of the 4 or so slots of your working memory. I'm sounding very teacherish now, but so this is valuable mental real estate, and it impacts your ability to do other focus work. So you always have these random to-dos kind of floating around as you're attempting to pay attention to your project that you're currently working on. If it's on a list, it's out of working memory. And the main thing is you need to be able to trust your system of capturing those to-dos, though. That is the most important. That's the second step. Trust the system that you're putting your to-dos into.
I'm a big believer in lists, and it took me a long time to get a list system that worked for me. I would write lists and lose them, or I would write lists and have no way of managing repeating tasks, or, there was a lot of, and I tried lots of things and eventually found a website that I use that runs my entire life called Toodle-doo, which I will link to in the show notes.
I love the name.
It's good, isn't it?
It's good, yeah.
What I like about it in particular is the repeating tasks functionality, because that was where I was struggling before. Basically, you can put a task on your to-do list and you can have it as a repeating task, whether that's daily or weekly or quarterly or annually. And if you have a repeating task, say I have something I want to do every Wednesday, I put it in for Wednesday as a repeating task, and then as I tick it off, it inserts it into the following Wednesday.
Ah, okay.
Because one of the things I was up against and struggling with was transferring repeating tasks. I couldn't be bothered to weekly write out the same things again and again. And so for me, that's working really, really well. And it's free. I think there is a paid option, but I don't use it. It offers extra functionality, but I don't particularly need it. But it's the kind of thing that has helped me so much. I would pay for it if necessary, because, sometimes it's worth it. But you're absolutely right. It's not just about writing it down. It's about writing it down in a way that really does work.
Yeah, and that you can retrieve it. You know where it's gone, because that's part of if you don't do that, then you're still using your working memory to kind of keep those things in the top of mind. But transforming distant deadlines as well into daily ones, so you know what you need to achieve each day to meet those deadlines without stress, is another good way to kind of externalize it, because a blob of a project is just too much, and that's why we want to procrastinate, because it's not specific what we need to do next. And that's why I like the whole, what is the very next smallest thing I can do towards achieving that goal, whatever it is. This, like a tiny, the smallest step. It might be, find the phone number for that person, or it might be, open up that file, or, something just tiny, so that I know where I'm at when I go back to it next time.
Are you familiar with the GTD system?
Yes, that's what I kind of use. That's kind of the backbone of my story, kind of storage system, if you like, of my information. Yeah.
Yeah, I use some of it. I read the book, which was great, listened to the guy talk a few times. It doesn't all work for me, but I feel like I've taken from it the useful bits. And for me, something really useful in there is the next action.
Yes.
Concept. You don't write a book. You write down what the next action you need to take is in order to eventually, write a book. And, or whatever your task is, de-hoard your home. You don't write on your to-do list, de-hoard.
De-hoard. It's like, okay.
You write, take out those 3 bin bags.
Exactly, yeah, that sort of thing. Just the very smallest piece that you can break off and achieve. And I know a lot of people feel that that's kind of too small a piece, but 1,000 steps and all that. Like, you can't really do it without doing every single little step. The other thing, I read a book. I don't recommend the book. It was a bit all over the place, but it was about deadlines.
Okay.
And, trying to trick your mind with a false deadline of your own a week before it's due, so that you've got that rush of stress that you may think you need, without that kind of consequence of missing the deadline. But you've got to be sure that you can fool yourself enough and don't just ignore it.
I have tried that and it doesn't work for me. I know full well it's a fake deadline. It's like when I was a kid, I once set my watch 5 minutes faster so I wouldn't be late for the bus to school. But of course I would look at my watch and say it says 8:05, so it's 8:00. It doesn't work for me. However, I'm sure it does work for some people and it's worth trying.
It is worth trying, but I agree. That's what kind of my thought process was. I don't know that I'd be able to get my brain to believe that. So.
Yeah, exactly. I try to use something that I've read is called productive procrastination, where you harness the need to busy yourself with something in order to avoid something else to achieve something productive. So I will say, need to check that email, and I'll be procrastinating about that. But instead of procrastinating by checking Twitter, I will try and procrastinate by filling the washing machine. It's like when I see people on Facebook say, can you tell I've got a big deadline, like my house is spotless? Obviously that's not one I say myself. But I guess I see it as a way to get something done, even if it wasn't the thing I had planned. But is that actually advisable, would you say, or should we try to stay on track with the original task?
The old productive procrastination, or structured procrastination, some people call it. Doing beneficial things while you're delaying doing more important things. Yeah, I get it. I kind of feel like this is where we engage in busy work, like that isn't urgent or is of low value. And ticking off those items on the to-do list feels productive, but you're actually not making progress towards the important work. I mean, no judgment, because I don't know if you've done this. I know I have. Do you write down items that you've done on your to-do list?
In order to tick them off?
Cross it off?
Yeah.
I put my hand up.
Yeah. All the time.
I feel like I've achieved something. Yes, I did that, even though it wasn't on the list of things to do and wasn't even important. I do quite like, and I was doing this for a long time, was keeping a done list as well as a to-do list so that I could separate out, and so that I could see where that time was going. And yes, it was semi-productive, but I could see that I wasn't getting those big ticket items ticked off. So it gave me a good contrast when I reviewed it. I mean, the washing needs to be done, but we need to ask ourselves if it's important and urgent. So, I mean, if we need to put the washing on because we have no undies and we've got a job interview tomorrow, then I'd say it's important and urgent. But how does that compare with checking my email? And some people use like that Eisenhower matrix.
Yeah, the important, urgent, not important, yeah.
Yeah, important and non-urgent, spend most time of your work here. Important and urgent, do it now kind of stuff, and non-important, non-urgent, just ignore it. And then your non-important and urgent, delegate or outsource. So, there is a kind of way. It is hard though, because you do have to really be honest with yourself about what are the things that are going to get you to the goal.
Yeah.
What is it that you can do today to get you to that goal?
So I guess better to put the washing on than not put the washing on, but even better to do the thing you were supposed to be.
You were supposed to. Yeah, exactly.
And there are things like blockers you can put on your web browser or on your phone. I'm thinking particularly of people who procrastinate by going on social media, which I'm not completely innocent of. And well, actually, there's two. One is a blocker that just doesn't let you on Facebook at all, or, whichever site you're thinking of. The other is something that just monitors how much time you spend on each. Because I suspect a lot of people would be shocked by, they think they've nipped over to Facebook for 5 minutes or to Twitter for 10 minutes. But if they've got something monitoring how long they're on each website and actually look at it at the end of the day, I suspect a lot of people might be surprised.
Yes. Yeah, you get a bit of a shock.
Yeah.
And that's like you can use like a commitment device to help you, which is like a choice that you make in the present to control your actions in the future. So, you want to increase the friction of your bad habits so you don't even have the opportunity to engage in them. Like, you're just using the example of social media, it's a massive time suck.
Yeah.
And we kind of need to find a way to remove that mental confectionery, because it's mental, sweets, isn't it? It's just there. We want to nibble on them all the time if they're there. So, if we feel a tiny bit bored, or we have a tiny bit of frustration, or, downtime, we head over there and we play games, or we're on social media. But, if you're serious about changing that, I mean, deleting the apps off your phone for a month,
yeah,
there's no way you're going to go back and reload them all unless you're desperate. If it feels too drastic, you might just change all your passwords and only log in on the weekend. There are ways. If you've got something that's a huge project that you are determined to achieve or to complete, then there are ways you can go around it. The other one I like, which I haven't tried myself and I've been threatening, perhaps you're tempted to stay up really late watching telly, streaming and scrolling on the internet on your phone into the wee hours. Getting an outlet timer and plug it in between your internet router and the PowerPoint. Set it for 10 and you have a circuit breaker. You're forced to go to bed because the internet goes down. That's it. Maybe too far for some people, but I've been saying I would do it with my children, but I still haven't because I'm still using it in half the night. So but that's an option.
Yeah, and the thing with any of these things is, of course, there's a workaround. Of course, you can go and plug it back in again. Of course, you can delete the app from reinstall the app on your phone. Of course, you can switch off the website, blocker. But even just putting an interruption there, I think would stop, because a lot of it's automatic. We don't even think about it, and it would stop that automatic thing. And it would also, even if you thought, I really want to watch another half hour of that Netflix show, if the breaker kicks in and you might think, well, I could plug it back in, but just having that interruption there would make you think, is it really that important, or should I actually?
Exactly. I know. And my router is actually in like a little cupboard that you can't access without lifting up all of this stuff and removing it. So it's perfect. If I set it up, I'd never want to change it because it would be so much hard work to get back in there.
Yeah.
But I might use my data a bit more. Maybe I might be really silly and start using data instead.
I think it was on Twitter, a woman had texted her kids and said, I've changed the Wi-Fi password. When you send me photos of your tidy bedrooms, I will send you the new password.
Exactly.
That was quite nicely done.
Exactly. I love that idea.
She got photos back pretty quickly of tidy bedrooms.
Pretty quickly. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and some people do that. They change it every single day. They just change the password for the Wi-Fi every day automatically, and people have to try achieve their to-do list before they're allowed back on. That's thought-provoking.
It's an option.
It is an option, yeah.
We've done a previous episode about perfectionism, which I expect can play into the urge to procrastinate. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. Like perfectionism's kind of there on the front line, the fear of failure, specifically the fear of making mistakes that then leads us into kind of analysis paralysis. If we fear we might be judged because of our wrong decisions, then putting off the decisions and actions can kind of seem to protect our self-esteem. And different types of perfectionists will procrastinate in different ways. So procrastinating perfectionists might plan an extensive project but fail to start because they fear they've got the inability to achieve the perfect vision. Accuracy perfectionists might redo their work time and time and time again and try to fix it, or go to great lengths to find the perfect materials to complete it. Ding, ding, ding. That might be a few people might be having their and then they get disappointed and they give up. They wanted to find the perfect shade of yarn to, stitch up something or whatever. They kept buying different products to finish the project, and none of them were just right. So these are really common, especially with my hoarding clients. But most of us kind of had this idea that there is a right way to do something. And if we just knew what that was, all our problems would disappear and everything would be fabulous. But the reality is you can watch all the YouTube videos you want and how-tos in the world, but they can't tell you what to do in your circumstance. Only you can kind of do that work. So it's important. Yes, you might need to find out how to do something on YouTube, but then you've got to be able to apply that to your own circumstances and change the way of doing it so it fits in with your life or your problem or whatever it might be. Only you can do the work.
Yeah, exactly. That makes a lot of sense to me in terms of kind of the de-hoarding work I'm doing. I will Google or YouTube or listen to podcasts about particular recommendations on how to do things. But like with GTD, what I have to do is try them and see what sticks and see what suits me. And I'm having to learn that just because such and such an expert says do it this way, if I find doing 80% of it that way, but then doing it differently in another way works better for me, that's what I need to go with. And I'm really trying to, when you were talking about kind of buying the perfect thing to achieve something, I have in the past massively overbought storage things because partly because I was under the illusion that it was an organization problem rather than a quantity problem.
Yeah.
And if I could just organize it properly, it would be fine, which was quite deluded. But yes, I would buy some plastic storage crates and then go, oh yeah, but that's not quite right because of this. So I would buy some more, but then I would obviously keep the first ones, and then I would buy some more, and then I would buy some shelves, and I go, well, they're great, but they're not quite what I expected. So I need to buy these shelves too. And it obviously all it does is expand and expand and expand and make the original problem worse. But you're under the illusion that because it's storage stuff, this is allowed stuff.
Yes, it's a qualified purchase. It's okay. You're getting something to store the stuff in, so that makes it okay. And a lot of people do start there. Like a lot of clients say, I got all this storage stuff and now I don't know. I want you to help me put the things into storage. And that's where we start to come up against it, because that's 9 times out of 10 it's a volume problem, not a storage problem. And the number of plastic tubs I have so many different types. You can find so many different types. I've got into the real habit now, even with myself. I make sure I measure those damned shelves. I measure everything and I write it down, and I draw a little picture in my diary, and I write all, depth, width, height, so that I know exactly when I go to IKEA or wherever, I know whether it's going to fit. I'm not going to buy it and then think, oh, that was wrong, I can't be bothered returning it. Ends up just dumped somewhere. I just think writing down the exact measurements of the space you want to use the product in. I mean, it's better just to get rid of stuff, but
yes, indeed. So at the moment, ADHD is having its moment as a condition, isn't it? Lots of people are self-diagnosing with ADHD. Lots of people are getting formal diagnoses of ADHD. If you go on TikTok, every third video is about ADHD. And to a lesser degree, autism. I think that it had its moment a few years ago. But it means I don't believe I have ADHD, but I do recognize a lot of myself in a lot of what's talked about. I just, don't think I have it kind of to a clinical degree or anything like that. But what I find is that listening to tips for people with ADHD is quite useful to me, even though I don't have it. So that's the preamble. So it means I've heard a lot about it over the last few months. And procrastination looks to me a lot like what people with ADHD and autism mean when they talk about particular aspects of executive dysfunction, such as being unable to meet deadlines, being late everywhere. But because of a kind of profound inability to get moving or get started, how would you say they're related?
The research has found that there's a relationship between procrastination and all of the things that we're talking about there. Impulsivity, self-monitoring, planning, organising, activity shifting, task initiation and monitoring, emotional control, working memory, all of that stuff are all the same areas that are impacted in ADHD inattentive type. And this comes back to that whole, we're looking at symptoms and syndromes and we're giving them names, but they kind of cut across. There's situations that cut across so many different disorders. But often, and as you say, like looking at those tips and tricks for people with ADHD is probably a really good place to start. Often people with ADHD will not stick with a task because something else is more interesting and exciting. fun or whatever. They get stuck on a task, usually something creative that they really love, and they just get kind of in that hyper-focused state, and then the whole day's gone and they've not done the things that they intended to do. But one of the ones that really intrigues me is poor concept of time. So being unable to estimate how long things take to complete, and then grossly underestimating, how long it takes leads them to miss their deadlines and cause lateness. Like, they really can't conceptualize how long something's going to take. And that really plays into all of those things: deadlines, lateness, and not being able to get moving because they think, oh, well, it'll only take 5 minutes. But the other thing is being overcommitted and tending to add activities before they take something away. And then they're unable to kind of prioritise what's most important. And then that leads to that chronic lateness and missed deadlines. I was talking to someone a little while ago, and that was one of the things she said. She just takes everything on. Oh, there's a new activity, there's a new job that must be done at her kid's school or at work. And without actually thinking about how much time that job will take, just accepting it. And then that means that all the other things that are maybe not as interesting but are more important get pushed to the back, and she does the things that she enjoys the most. And then there's just this mess of priorities and no one's managing anything. So I think that's a real big one. They tend to add before they subtract. And if you can start thinking that way, I'm adding this new job, what will I need to take away if I really want to do this? I think that's kind of something that is good to think about for both people with a hoarding history or someone who has ADHD, I think. And it's the same for people with kind of a complex PTSD kind of background. They have similar kind of symptoms to ADHD. So it's across a lot of different disorders, I think.
And what you're saying there about adding before subtracting made me immediately think of even just assertiveness as well. Some people are asked to join a committee or help out and either don't know how to say no or don't value themselves and their time enough to say no, and so take on and take on and take on, not even intentionally, but just because they can't say no to people.
Yes, I read an article by this person on Medium that I follow, and she struggles with hoarding disorder, and she said she's got trouble with boundaries generally, and she has this inability to know when something is enough or too much, like not being able to kind of balance it up. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about there, not having the boundaries to be able to say, no, I know that this is my capability. I want, not being able to say no. Instead, you say yes because you want people to like you and you want people to, appreciate what you're doing and all of those things. That's fine. But chances are you will disappoint someone.
Yeah.
And it probably will be yourself at the end of the day. But it's that idea. I thought that was really interesting that she talked about that, saying, I haven't got boundaries with stuff coming into my home. I don't know when it's enough or too much. Perhaps that's something more broadly impacting my life in other areas as well. So I think boundaries are kind of an interesting topic.
Yeah.
Particularly in hoarding.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think almost in so many ways, as you say that, I'm thinking about boundaries in terms of bringing stuff in, boundaries in terms of we've kind of almost got too tight boundaries in some ways and too loose boundaries in other ways. So our boundaries for kind of what can be taken out, for instance, suddenly get very tight and controlled. Boundaries for what's coming in get very loose and, whatever.
Oh, whatever. Yeah, exactly. Oh, well, I'll err on the side of caution and I'll get it. That's the boundary of one of the other things is that kind of boundary of discomfort too. Like you don't want to feel uncomfortable, so you do everything you can to kind of remain comfortable, and that can actually backfire quite significantly.
Yes, I think a lot of people have, and I certainly used to have, I don't think I'm there now, but a lot of people will do anything to avoid discomfort, will do the most extreme things to avoid sitting with a feeling of discomfort. And once I recognized I was doing that, and I realized that it was almost ridiculous, that I was putting myself through worse things in order to avoid something that, would just feel uncomfortable for a bit. As soon as I recognized I was doing it, I addressed it quite quickly and quite easily. But some people are really stuck in that place where they'll do anything to avoid discomfort.
Exactly. And that's very that's very acceptance and commitment therapy kind of language, that not being able to manage that discomfort. So the whole, the roundabout way that we avoid discomfort is, probably much more painful and much more disruptive than actually just going straight to the source and feeling the discomfort, because it will pass. It passes.
If a big problem in your house is clothes and you're in a clothes shop and you see something that you really, really like, then you can either tolerate discomfort there and then and leave it in the shop, or you can avoid tolerating that discomfort and create long-term discomfort by buying it. And if you're buying it to avoid feeling a bit sad that you can't buy it, it's a bigger problem than just feeling a bit sad and then invariably forgetting about it by the
you'll
evening.
Forget about it, yeah. You'll forget, that's for sure. I mean, it's that whole, I think I've written about it in the newsletter at one point, just that whole, that's a future Jan problem, I'll worry about that later. And that's part of that, what we do when we procrastinate is we're biased towards comfort and enjoyment right in the moment at the risk of having to deal with all of that in the future. And it's a lot bigger in the future because it will snowball and it will get bigger. So kind of trying to take that future orientation when you're in the moment and thinking it through, how will that potentially impact, if I come home with 4 new dresses, how will that then impact on what I have, firstly in my bank account, secondly in the house, where will I put it, what will I get rid of, all of those things. I think if you think that through, you might just throw the towel in and go, oh, no, can't be bothered, I don't need new dresses. And you walk out and you saved all that money, time and effort.
Yeah.
I think that what would future me want me to do is kind of a good question.
Yeah, I've got an episode coming up in a few weeks with questions to ask yourself when you're sorting through stuff. And spoiler alert, one of the ones I came across and liked is something along the lines of, does keeping this contribute to the vision I have for my home? And
that's a Peter Walshy one. That's kind of Peter Walsh.
Yeah. It puts it in a context wider than, I just quite like it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I like it. I want to keep it because I like it. How much? Where's it going to go?
Does it contribute to your overall vision? No.
No.
Like, this candle smells nice, I should keep it because it smells nice. Does it contribute? No, it doesn't at all. I will never light it. I know that. And it's something else to dust should I ever get to that stage.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's just more stuff to pick up and dust around. I always think of that too.
Yeah.
Is it a dust catcher? Is it going to be something that really will frustrate me and cause me extra work in the long term? Yes, probably.
Exactly.
It's gone.
Flexibility is great. That's why there's yoga. Flexibility for your insurance coverage is great too. That's why there's United Healthcare Insurance Plans. Underwritten by Golden Rule Insurance Company, United Healthcare Insurance Plans offer flexible, budget-friendly coverage for medical, vision, dental, and more. One of these plans may be right for you if you're, say, between jobs, coming off your parents' plan, turning a side hustle into a full hustle, or even missed open enrollment. Want more flexibility? Find out more about United Healthcare Insurance Plans at uh1.com.
Hey everyone, I'm Craig Robinson, co-host of the Ways to Win podcast. alongside my good friend John Calipari. I've been on the go recently. Phoenix, Kansas City, Chicago. If you're like me and have a home but aren't always at home, you have an Airbnb. Hosting your home or a spare room is a very practical side hustle. If you live in a big game town, you can Airbnb your place for fans to stay in. Your home might be worth more than you think. Find out how much at airbnb.com/host.
Looking specifically at procrastination around de-hoarding, what can people do when they feel totally stuck?
Yeah, we've just been talking a little bit about emotion regulation, and you were talking about that whole, okay, there's some discomfort there, feel it rather than try to avoid it. That's a big part of it, because that's what's happening to you when you flick the procrastination switch, because you feel a little bit like I don't know what I'm doing. But if you sit back and kind of feel that can really improve your ability to move through some of these emotional kind of blockers. But we don't feel like doing things because they're hard and it takes effort, and we might have to face up to our poor decisions or, our buried emotions or guilt or regret. And that's one of the ones with hoarding. That's what people are up against. If I do this, if I push through and I actually start doing it, then I have to face up to those things that I'm not proud of. And that's that self-esteem piece as well. We put things off until we feel like doing them, and then our emotions dictate our actions. But, we know that emotions are signposts and they don't control us. Blocking them out is counterproductive. Being consumed by them is masochistic. But their emotions are information to be processed, not rules to follow or feelings to avoid. So that's really important to remember that as you have that the feeling that you want to procrastinate. But one of the things I think can really help if you're super stuck is journaling. Because I feel like we rarely externalize this stuff. We rarely kind of turn it over and have a look at it from different angles. I mean, that's kind of how a therapist can help you. I mean, many of us need someone else to kind of reflect back our emotions and thoughts and question our behaviours before we can really see them for what they are. So that's where a therapist comes in. But, you don't have to have a therapist to be your own, in a way. Journaling is really important, I think, in this journey that you're on. But write down how you feel and why you think you're blocked, and be as honest as you can. No one has to see it. And then leave it for a day and come back and reflect on those thoughts and be curious. And approach that journal writing as an experiment. There's no need for judgment. You're trying to make a change. It's a small step. Even if it's just one line, one thing, one single line every day. I think it's the perfect place to kind of explore your values. And talking through before, you were saying about how does this object contribute to my vision for my home? Well, how does this object contribute to the vision of my future, or, of how I want to live my life? Is this moving me towards it or away from it? And there is an answer. It is a yes or a no question, really.
Yeah.
I think. But, how do you want to live? And then taking actions towards that. But taking the time to work through those values is a really good place to start, because then you can filter that down into, what your habits are going to be, how you're going to build your habits from there in order to achieve that overall way of living or way of being. So that's kind of up here as a direction. And then from there, you need to kind of look at, well, what are the things I need to do? I mean, if we wait for the motivation fairy to arrive, it's likely that the situation will just become more stressful and overwhelming.
She hasn't visited here for a while.
Yeah, and it becomes more critical. and the action is taken out of our hands sometimes, and external people have to intervene. But healthy habits are what we really need to cultivate. And if you're feeling totally stuck, I'm not sure if you've read James Clear's Atomic Habits.
Yes, I listened to it on audiobook. Really interesting.
Yeah, when I first bought the book, I kind of thought, seems awfully simple, or it seems awfully but I was blown away. I was really blown away when I read it, and I kind of looked at some of the things he'd made suggestions around. I was like, yes, you are so correct. So the couple of things that he says about making changes and conquering procrastination, the first thing is we need to get real with ourselves and recognize the bad habits that are actually contributing to that dysfunction in our home environment. And he rightly suggests that success is often about making good habits easy and bad habits hard. And it's so simple, but it's spot on. So there's heaps of ideas, but a couple of the most powerful ones were start small. I mean, minute.
Yeah.
So we need to master the art of showing up. So trying that 2-minute rule that he suggests in his book may sound kind of bogus, but whatever the habit is that you wish to develop, scale it down to a 2-minute version. So your habit might be you want to have a clear kitchen table every day. So clear the kitchen table becomes discard 3 items of rubbish. Or you might want to walk for 1 hour per day. That becomes put my runners on and tie my shoelaces, and it's just that starting, it's that kicking yourself over. That's all you have to do. And sometimes you may say to yourself, I am only allowed to do 2 minutes of this activity. I have to stop.
Yeah.
I must stop before I do more than 2 minutes, because that way, you've done it and you also still feel good. You don't feel defeated by it. It's still, I did 2 minutes. It's amazing what I can do in 2 minutes. It's a tick for the day. And then you can move on to do the fun stuff.
Yeah, there's a story I heard once, and it might have actually been in that book, but I'm not sure. And there was some kind of program for people who wanted to start cooking from scratch every day when they currently didn't. And what this program involved, I think the first week was when you come in from work, you go into the kitchen and out again. And then the second week was when you come in from work, you go into the kitchen and put a pan on the stove. Don't do anything else, that's it. And so you do that for another week, and then, it was that degree of building, because of course you can cook. You might come in from work and think, I can't cook from scratch, but of course you can go in and out of the kitchen. And then once you've done that for a week, of course you can just get a pan and put it on the stove. That's no, trouble at all, because you're not going to have to do anything with it. And it was built up over, and people initially thought it was ridiculous, but it wasn't. It absolutely made sense.
It wasn't. It worked. Yeah. And I get a lot of people, throwing away 3 things or throwing away 1 thing every day. It's going to take me years to move through all of this. Well, it's one more thing than you threw out yesterday or the day before, and that is the way you will get the habits will build up, because you'll start to get to the point where you've put the pan on the stove and you'll go, I know what I'll do. I've got some leftovers I'll reheat, and then it just kind of flows on. Yeah. And then you're in that routine of going into the kitchen every night when you get home. And then the next thing that triggers in your mind, put the pot on the stove, and then the next step, and it just builds, and that's one of his ideas too, is that whole building on top of other habits in order to kind of build like a habit kind of sandwich, or I can't remember what he calls it, but I really like that too. But you have to keep doing that 2-minute habit consistently before you can take it to that next stage, because you haven't got anything to build on unless you've got that habit happening. So I think that's really key.
The habit stacking thing, you can tell my entire life is a series of techniques. It's the only way I can get through the day. But habit stacking is...
There's no shame in that.
No. I know myself well enough. I know what I need. One thing I'm doing with that regard is every time I go in the bathroom, I pick 5 things up and put them either where they're supposed to be or in the bin. Because obviously you go in the bathroom however many times a day, you go, oh, I can pick 5 things up. Like, that's fine. There's an empty toilet roll holder here on the floor, put that in the bin. There's 12 bottles of shampoo when I only need 2 at most. And you go in and you go, oh, well, I may as well do it. It's only 5 things. And it's attached to something I do several times a day. And it's just much easier than going, right, I'm going to blitz the bathroom.
Exactly. And blitzing the bathroom will take an hour, and then you procrastinate because an hour's too long.
Yeah.
You can't possibly squeeze that in. And it's the same with exercise, isn't it? I mean, all these things are kind of similar in a way to, we all need to exercise more. We all need to, eat better. We all need to do all of these things, but it's much easier to procrastinate. But if you do such a tiny, tiny piece and you keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it, it will then create that groove in your mind. There will be a high speed track towards that habit where before there wasn't, and that's what you're looking to do. It's making those connections that you don't have to think. You won't have to ponder any longer about whether it's 5 things. You just kind of automatically do it.
Yeah.
And I think habit is, hoarding is a disorder, but I think some of the things are habitual, that we get into that routine. And we may use that, I have this hoarding disorder, as a kind of blanket statement. But there are things you can change if you're willing to try and create new habits, which I think is really positive. I think that's a really kind of exciting thing to think about, that if I can learn how to change my habits, I can actually make a huge change in my space and in my life. I think that's kind of really...
It's quite empowering.
Empowering, yeah, I think so too. And that's what I think, when I'm working with my clients, I try to make sure that I connect with, some of these habits that they started. You never used to do that before, it was always save. Yeah. And reflecting back on that gives them, a great sense of achievement, which, we want to be feeling good about ourselves. That's what, that's life. We want to feel like we're achieving something. And, hey, 2 minutes, if it takes 2 minutes, that's all.
You said something in there that I thought was worth highlighting, and you may want to talk about again, just to expand on a bit. You said, I think it was emotions of feelings that haven't been processed. Is that what you said?
Yeah, emotions are information to be processed. Yeah, and I think that it's emotions are there. They have a reason for being. They're there for a reason, but that is just information. It's not. We need to reflect on that and say, oh, okay. Again, it's the curiosity piece. It just changes the perspective on things, and I think that really makes a huge difference.
And also, when you were talking about journaling and or therapy as a way of kind of getting clarity, there are some people who are just brilliant at asking the right question that makes you reframe everything. I remember a previous place I used to work, we had to do a lot of thinking about kind of ethics and the ethics and morals of the organization, and what positions we were going to take and how it was going to work. And we would be battling these things out behind the scenes relentlessly. And then there was one woman who worked there who, after days of us battling, would come in and just ask one question, and we'd all go, oh yeah, and be decided, because she phrased it a certain way and she had a particular outlook that made us realize that in this case, made us realize that we weren't on opposite sides. We were just trying to get the right thing in the right order, or whatever it was. But I remember being gutted when she left for that reason. I was like, who is going to resolve with one question these endless arguments we have in the back, at the back, not arguments, but, just discussions
Debates
that went on. Yeah. And so sometimes I am all for journaling. I think journaling is great, and I am all for therapy if that's accessible to somebody. But sometimes you might have a person in your life who is great at helping you resolve dilemmas, even if you don't tell them the full story. Just simplify. Somebody who can simplify things in that kind of way.
Yeah, like kind of a walking journal prompter. It's like a journal prompter that just goes, think about it this way. Have you thought about when was the last time you... Yeah.
Exactly. And good therapists are great at that often. You come in with a big kind of muddle, like a ball of wool that's all tangled up, and you leave with a very neat ball of wool that's nicely rolled up because they asked the right questions in the right way that got you to rethink.
Yeah, and that's what we hope. That's our dream, that we do that. That's like that's what we want people to say we've done.
Yeah, and it's not going to be magic every session, and it's not going to be endless breakthroughs, but it's an ongoing process, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And if you're asking the right questions, then hopefully you're helping that other person just clarify.
Yeah.
And we're there next to you. We're not there to tell you what to do, because, that's notoriously fraught with peril, giving people advice. It's more, well, what do you think about these, about this particular situation? Hopefully that leads to more clarity and leads to, more peace and more hope.
That can even just come from asking yourself, if you have an I can't statement in your head, I can't do this, saying why, that one word alone can make you realise, okay, well, I think I can't because of this, but actually, and that can resolve something.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
So if that's the way you're procrastinating, ask yourself some strategic questions. You'll get there.
You'll get there. Yep, that's true.
In just 1 second, I'll give you my top tip of the week. In the meantime, please do subscribe to the podcast, review it, 5 stars would be amazing, and share it with your friends or anyone who might be interested or who might benefit from it. It all really helps. To find more ways to support the website, the podcast, and my overall de-hoarding project, go to overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk/support. Now, back to your top tip. So this week's top tip is coming from Dr. Jan herself. Jan, give us your top tip of the week.
When you feel this is too much, try asking, what do I need? Am I behind? Try asking, what can I celebrate? If you feel I messed up, try, what did I learn? This isn't working. Try, what tweak can I try?
I love it. I feel like I need that to be my ringtone on my phone.
What do I need?
Jan's voice asking me clever questions. So thank you, Jan, for, as ever, your wisdom and also your top tip, which is a great one. How can people find you online if they want to?
Well, you can go to my website, stuffology.com.au, or Instagram at stuff_ology, Twitter at stuff_ology, or just, send me an email, jan@stuffology.com.au.
Fantastic.
Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. Thank you for listening to the Overcome Compulsive Hoarding podcast. You can find more online at overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk. You can find me on Twitter at @thathoarder and on Facebook at Overcome Compulsive Hoarding with That Hoarder. To find out more about how you can support this podcast and the overall project, go to overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk/support and do subscribe to this podcast so you make sure you don't miss any future episodes.
Now on Broadway, An Enemy of the People is a New York Times critic's pick. Jeremy Strong is one of the great actors of his generation, hails the Chicago Tribune. In a performance the Wall Street Journal praises as powerfully affecting and bitterly funny. Michael Imperioli sets off sparks, cheers the Hollywood Reporter. Victoria Pedretti is luminous, raves variety. From director Sam Gold and playwright Amy Herzog, An Enemy of the People is urgent, electrifying, and haunting, declares USA Today. An Enemy of the People, on Broadway through June 16th only.